native show in the history of the Guthrie. And so you need to commission and fully produce a show now. You've done 2 of these short form things. You need to really commit, and so does the break. We did. So the 3 of us, Ty and I, were co-writers, almost the director, and we all continue the community engagement process together for several years.
Doing a play like that, it was like figuring out the organizing, it was trust building, it was finding the framework. So I felt like it kind of wove itself together in a particular kind of way. And it was nice collaborating with these 2 because it's like working with your family, it's like working with like your friends, and it's all in service of telling that story and all in service of the community, the community we want to serve. And so our ethic was very much aligned in working on a piece like that.
And there's some really beautiful institutional changes that happened with it. Our first day of rehearsal was gorgeous.
Yeah.
So we walked into the lobby of the, this quite cold building, and there's all these native women and urban spirits and elders, and the first hour, first day of rehearsal, there's a lot of rituals where generally the artistic director talks, and then the director talks, and the playwright talks, the creative team talks, and there's presentations, and it's all somewhat formal.
And I'm venturing to, the story I tell myself, which I think is close to accurate, is that in the 60 years of the Guthrie, every first rehearsal, the first person to speak has always been the artistic director of the Guthrie, who's always, I believe, always been male. And you can guess, their background. And I'm thinking, if not that person, then they're designated, they're the person they're designated because they were out of the country or something like that.
We had first a Dakota elder spoke, and a Ojibwe elder spoke, and then they smudged everybody. It was almost an hour.
Over an hour.
For the Indigenous part was done.
It was a real message sent to the entire staff and the entire community of the Guthrie of what our process was going to be. And it really started us off on an amazing foot, I thought.
I think people talk a lot about centering, Indigenous voices. They literally did, right? There's a difference between saying we're going to give space to and centering. And so what we're trying to do is center in Indigenous voices, and the way that, giving it a full hour of all the staff's time to say there's no parameters, no one tells them how
long
what to
speak,
do,
what to say, nothing.
It was really beautiful. And in the corner, another Dakota woman was making medicine bags for everybody. It was just such a great example, like you were saying, for the whole staff and the production team to see, this is what it means. It means there's no limits. It's not you fit within what we do. It's like we're just gonna we're gonna fit within what you do, and if there's time, we'll do our thing too.
Well, I think the artistic director there, Joe Hodge, has been doing a great job trying to take this ocean liner and somehow break its momentum and move in a different direction. I do think the work that Indigenous direction has done there over the years set us up for that moment. Right, that was years of creating a context where the organization that's pretty rigid and sees themselves as the example for the rest of the country, really, is how regional theater should be, was able to sort of shift what is a really important thing for them. That artistic director saying the first words is a big deal to them. I got a whole, as the director, I got a whole long email explaining to me what was going to happen that day, how and why. That was just the one they always send out, right? It wasn't a message being sent to me. It was just what I got in my little package that they sent me, and I was like, wow, it was pretty intense. It was very specific. So it's really ingrained there, and for them to say, okay, we're going to shift this in a different way and not center that voice was powerful.
Yeah, and so working with the team, it's kind of 500 years of extraction, of exploitation, to have 1 hour of protocol of the land where we were doing this theater piece. We were like, let's see if they can do this, right?
We were.
Just, putting some of these theories into practice, and that was the moment. That was the moment of truth.
Yeah.
Well, and then I'd say also before that, though, the set design, for instance, was really an act of resistance.
Oh my gosh, so much. Tanya Orellana was our set designer.
Yeah, they commissioned local artists to create murals for the set. And it was interesting how something that seems so easy, there was no system that allowed that to happen at the Guthrie. There's no system for bringing, because it's a union house and all the things, right? So there was no system for Indigenous women to collaborate, create these wall murals, and then how do they get paid, and then who owns them, and then who paints them, and it was just the layers and layers of white supremacy culture to just say you can't just have, someone has to paint the set, and design what that looks like, and we couldn't have two local Native women do it. Like, it was wild how much work it took for you and Tanya.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, that just seeing that set when you walked in was an act of Indigenous resistance.
It's very much, the set was it was acknowledged by some people at the theater, like, wow, this is so it just, you walk in the space and it feels like a different thing is happening here, right? And it was pretty radical. I mean, it was pretty great. Just the set. It almost felt like we'd done our work. Like, we can just go home now.
The set is up.
The set is up. Let's go. Yeah. It really kind of felt like that. Yeah.
And then also, I'd say too, the other big impact you could see was on the audiences, right? Not only were there hundreds and hundreds of Native people, so tickets were free or incredibly cheap. Everyone could get a free or like really cheap ticket. Every elder got 2 free tickets, or 5, I think, actually 5 free tickets for any Native elder that asked. And then huge groups were brought in, you know, from all these different communities. And we did a lot of work with the front of house and ticketing to make sure the experience felt Indigenous and that families could come in the way they came and children were welcome in the way that we live in intergenerational families there. And, you know, it's interesting how just being able to allow people to exist with space, how much work it takes.
It was work.
An incredible amount of work and so many meetings and so much drama. And what happened, it was beautiful, and everyone was fine. The white patrons were fine.
Yeah.
The Native patrons were fine.
They were definitely worried about how what the experience was going to be. If we were going to change how house management worked, what was that going to do to quote unquote their patrons? And that's just institutional resistance, right? Like, and changing that conversation altogether. Like, we had several meetings with their entire house staff, which is humongous. It's a giant building that's hard to move around in. So they have lots of ushers, and they have all kinds of house management staff and stuff. And someone, you know, and they're used to a sense of like, we are dictating, like there are rules and how one behaves in this space, in the theater space. So you shush people, you don't talk during the show, you don't do this, you don't do that. We were like, none of that's going to work. And someone said, well, we have to police people. I said, so we're going to take that verb out of the conversation altogether.
Definitely that one.
I have to say, especially post 2020 Minneapolis, let's just take policing right on out. Like, let's just not use it. And it was kind of interesting because everybody kind of was like, and talked about that. And it was really, and at the end of the day, all we were asking people to do is like, don't be policers, be welcomers. Just be welcomers. Just say, welcome. We're glad you're here. Do you need any help? Can I do anything for you?
Yeah.
That was radical.
And it was really But once
radical
they
to
did
welcome.
it, so many ushers came up to us and said, I love my job so much now. Like, this is fun to do. Because I don't have to feel like I'm somehow the hall monitor, the enforcer, but I'm actually just like, we're really glad you're here. And people are like, yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's like, yeah, well, can I do anything? No, all right, great, enjoy the show. It was so awesome, right? And it definitely changed people's experience. And yet we didn't get a lot of complaints from their more conventional patrons.
And it also made the art more vibrant too. So it's like, right, not everyone was like agreeing when folks came to see the piece itself. Like, this was made for that Indigenous particular community. And so, right, we had people laughing in moments where, from the community, and that was really, really wonderful to hear. And other people were like, laughing at other moments too. So it was like really interesting to see the sort of like cacophony of voices that would come to this about a community coming together. There was a moment where there was a young person, little girl, running down the aisle because a little toddler trying to reach these like beautiful plants that were on the stage, because we had like a huge rainstorm actually happen on stage, reach for the plants, and no one stopped her from reaching that plant, right? So just kind of thinking about that, where things like tone policing a space can feel really violent, and people go to the theater and they fall asleep all the time, and they're snoring and no one wakes them up, but so it's like this should be a place where people can exist.
It was